Grand, so hi everybody, I'm Kieran from Archaeology Scotland. So I've got about 10-ish minutes to quickly fire through the kind of work that we've been doing as part of the Towers of Rule project. So like Roger said, we got involved in 2019 and it started as a Adopt a Monument project that some of you might be familiar with, funded by Historic Environment Scotland. And the plan was that we would kind of follow up on sites that had been identified associated with this, the Earl of Hertford's raid, and follow up with some sort of community-based sort of survey, and then see where we kind of went from there. So I'll kind of be giving a bit of an overview. The project, like I said, it's been going on for about 5 years. There's some sites that won't have time to mention, but we are in the process of pulling everything together, and it will hopefully be with you next year. And we are kind of looking to continue the project on. So I'll look at some of the sites, mainly Bedrow Castle, but a big part of the project has been the sort of community engagement that we've done around the Towers of Rule project. So we've worked with local heritage organisations, we've had representatives from the Hoik Group, Ancrum, amongst others, over 60 adult volunteers, young people from Works Plus and Borders Additional Needs Group who are based in Galashiels, so a sort of employability programme, and then a support group for those additional needs. And thanks to our amazing learning team, we've had over 200 school pupils from every high school in the border, apart from Peebles, but it is the furthest away, so fair enough. And including the local primary school, Denham. And some of the kind of, I'll also touch a little bit on when we talk about Swanshield, the Scottish Borders Council wellbeing groups and pre-employability groups who have been out and you know, as part of this idea that archaeology should be for everybody and everyone should have access to it. So as the project's developed, we've been developing partnerships as we go along in order to provide opportunities for people who face barriers or who are largely kind of ignored by some other kind of, you know, archaeological works. So to give a wee flavour of some of the impact of the, particularly working with the schools, one of the deputy head teachers said the project allowed young people to build links with their local community, engaging with a range of community groups, showcasing what they had achieved and celebrating their success. For many of these young people, it was the first time they had engaged positively within the wider community. And that's something that kind of theme is something that we tried to develop. So super quick. Bedrow Castle, some familiar faces that have been to Bedrow Castle digging with us. In short, the main debate around Bedrow Castle is in relationship with Fast Castle, which is just across the Rulewater. To the left of the red bit is where there's a Moat and Bailey castle called Fast Castle. And this idea of the development of a 13th century common power centre. I don't have time to go into the kind of nitty-gritty of Oram and Turpey's reports, but there are really outstanding questions about the development of Bedrow Castle, in terms of is it a castle, how long is it in use for, and then we have this kind of theme of various episodes of raiding and burning. There's also the small matter of the First Scottish War of Independence, and the possibility that the castle was maybe slighted by the Bruce. So there's quite a lot of outstanding questions. And we've been excavating there over 3 seasons, 2021, 2022, and most recently 2024. So I'll quickly go through the 2024 phase mostly. But there you can see an aerial shot that's from Richard Strathay that shows the earthwork of Bedrow Castle, and then in there you've got some more kind of complex humps and bumps and things. And then on the eastern side, or the lower side of that photograph, you can just about make out the kind of extension of the earthwork, but that's largely been kind of ploughed flat. On the other side, we have the Border Boroughs Archaeology project from the mid-80s, their plain table survey of the site. And a visit from the Royal Commission in the mid-50s said that this site showed characteristics of being a 13th century or late 13th century castle. In 2022, we got some geophysics done by the wonderful Rose Geophysics. And yeah, we were able to pick up the outer boundary of the castle. The geophysics indicated that it was probably more of a earthen bank, and excavations have backed this up a little bit on the western side where we've got the earthworks, that there's probably mostly an earthen bank with some stone footings within it. It's not a big, rigid, strong castle wall necessarily. We've also got the kind of red splodges sort of in the middle of the image there that show areas of high resistance where we think, or the geophysicists have suggested, that there's potentially kind of rubble spreads or demolition. We've not ground truthed any of this yet, but it really has helped us kind of contextualise the earthworks where mostly we've been working. And we are hoping as we go on that we'll be able to look at that side in a bit more detail. So there's the two trenches from 2024, Trench 2 and then Trench 6. Trench 2 is one that's been ongoing and expanding as the project's developed. So I'll quickly go through what we thought we had. So this large wall just up here, we think that shows a lot of reused stone. And then the kind of the C-shaped or backward C-shaped structure on the left-hand side of the drone image, we think it's sort of maybe a later agricultural building. There was a lot of chat about maybe a spiral staircase, but we think it's mostly a working area or a kiln. And then where the ranging rods are, we have evidence of a sort of barn, lots of animal bone, lots of pottery. And then below that, we had a sort of some series of kind of timber post holes and maybe a kind of, I don't know, some sort of cut. We initially thought that maybe we had 3 phases there, but as we got the pottery back, we are still waiting on a lot of the other post-ex, by the way. The pottery all shows that what we've got is no earlier than 1600, essentially, 17th century, which has thrown us a little bit, but I think we're kind of starting to know where we need to go in the future, basically, as always is the way. There are a hint of an earlier wall down here, but we don't have any dating for that, and we had some earlier wall phasing in one of the other trenches that we couldn't date either. We have the barn here. There was quite a nice millstone that you can see just at the end of that photo on the right where the pointy bit of the ranging rod is. We think this barn had burnt down. We think, well, it must have burnt down in the 17th century, and then that has caused parts of this nice wall to collapse, including a section of an archway. Here we have the possible flue. So again, the pottery dates have kind of thrown us a little bit, and we think we now kind of have questions about the phasing of the site and what is contemporary to the nice wall that we have just at the bottom of that photo. And we think the agricultural building, they've maybe cut a flue underneath and it's gone into this kind of barn area. Trench 6. So Trench 6, we have what we think is the interior of a kind of high status building. It's in keeping with the architecture shown in the nice wall of the other trench. And we have quite a lot of imported 16th century pottery. So at that point, are we looking at the kind of manor house stage of the bedroll story, which I've kind of glazed over, but you can get in touch if you've got any questions. So kind of quite low on time, but Bonchester Townhead is another site that is Rogers identified. It was identified in the early 19th century as well. Shows up okay in the LiDAR. We do have quite a nice account of sort of small scale burning of the site, or at least a small scale raid at the site in about 1563. Yeah, 1563, October 1563. So we've been there a couple of times with some of our wonderful volunteers. I think that photo was from Jeff, so thanks, Jeff. And we kind of had a little look. Again, it's ongoing work, but we've got some really nice architectural features, and the preliminary kind of thinking is that we've got more of a kind of basel house, and that is in keeping with earlier descriptions of what the site kind of looked like at the later half of the 19th century. To wrap up very quickly with Swan Shield, which Roger mentioned. So Swan Shield was a completely new site that we visited at the start of last year. With Roger, we've done some survey and then some sort of a follow-up kind of little trial excavation with volunteers and the Scottish Borders Pre-Employability Group. It was very wet and very muddy in February of this year, but we've got some quite nice results in terms of understanding the kind of use of the site in terms of building platforms. Unfortunately, we didn't get any strong dating evidence, but it's like I said, the kind of project is a bit of a work in progress. And we do have quite a nice, that photo in the bottom right there, shows quite a nice revetted sort of earth bank that would enclose the site. As part of the Swan Shield phase of works, we worked with Works Plus, based in Galashiels, to do some traditional skills in dry stone walling. And we got one of the comments from the young people kind of reflected on their interest, surprise and satisfaction of the stones that we just sort of see lying on the ground were all able to be popped back into a wall. and kind of, you know, retain the historic character of the landscape. Grand. So, like I said, it is kind of ongoing work. We are looking at different funding avenues. We've been very lucky with funding from mostly the UK government, HES, from Scottish Borders Council as well, who've all been very wonderful and supportive. We've got a wonderful group of volunteers who are an absolute joy to work with on site and really make, you know, showcase what's special about community archaeology and the fact you've got people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, being able to get involved in archaeology. And for me, that's one of the most valuable things about archaeology, is what it can offer to contemporary societies, aside research and understand where we've come from. And a big thank you to the Archaeology Scotland learning team. So yeah, that was a bit of a whirlwind, but thank you very much. If you have any questions,